Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel to see more of my reviews and watch some of my older reviews. What's going on, y'all? My name is Deron Shields, and I am back with another movie review. This time I'll be reviewing Send Help, directed by Sam Raimi, starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, I believe. It's kind of a archetypal story, but it's a unassuming, kind of awkward protagonist, office worker. Bradley, played by Dylan O'Brien, is like the newfound boss, inherited the business from his father, and kind of like a frat boy, mean guy, misogynist, douchey type of dude. They go on a business trip, crash land on a island. This is not a spoiler at all. Crash land on the island, and they see the power dynamics shift. So it's kind of like a oh, how the tables have turned type of story. But with no further ado, this is my review of Send Help. All right, so the story is a kind of a familiar archetype. The beginning is like the Linda Little character played by Rachel McAdams. She's like this smart but kind of frumpy and awkward, kind of socially oblivious character. It kind of reminded me of the beginning of Wanted. The movie Wanted came back forever ago. In those office scenes where it's just like annoying boss. And the characters are like, comically acted or comically performed. And I feel like with comedy, I tend to forgive a lot. So they are kind of like cliches. Even the boss, like I said, he's kind of like this overly mean guy that's kind of like dismissive, looking down on the workers, don't know what their name is or where they actually, what department they work in or anything like that. But those are the two leads, Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams, which is Bradley Preston, which is the boss, and then Linda Little, where she's like in strategy and planning, but he thinks she's in accounting. She's been at the job for 7 years, and one of her cohorts has been there for 6 months, but is a frat brother of Bradley Preston, the mean boss, and therefore she gets skipped over for the promotion, and Donovan, the other character, that's been there for 6 months, gets the promotion. So she's just overlooked and kind of mistreated. And it's comical. It's to like comical proportions. So they're like laughing right in their face and it's being like almost like kids in certain instances. But they go on this trip to Bangkok and they get into a plane crash, and coincidentally the only survivors are Linda Little, the mistreated worker, and Bradley Preston, which is the mean boss. And from there, they go on this journey of newfound power dynamics, and we kind of go from there. It's listed as like a horror / thriller comedy. After watching it, it's definitely more of a thriller. There's like small elements of horror, maybe a couple jump scares or whatever, but mostly like a thriller, like I said, a little suspense or whatever, and definitely a lot of comedy, a lot of comedic tones throughout. There was a scene where they're just literally just laughing about the situation, and it actually was kind of funny. Like they was just like dying laughing for no reason. And I'm not, when it comes to comedy, it's kind of hard to make me laugh out loud, but I got a little bit of like a chuckle out of them just like laughing about. It was like right after the boar scene where she goes and hunts the boar to get some actual sustenance. But yeah, not so much of a horror movie, even though it's listed that way. More of a thriller, comedy, suspense type of thing with elements of horror. One thing I did appreciate about the story is that these characters, while they started off as very much cliches and these archetypes that we've seen before, there's times where they shift, and like even though they somewhat kind of come back to center, they do kind of shift and show some depth. There's a conversation that Bradley and Linda Little have while on the beach stranded, that kind of goes into their respective backstory. She's talking about her marriage. He's talking about his upbringing with his parents and grandparents. And it humanizes him because he's been like overly mean and like comically mean the whole time, but that kind of humanized him for a second. He definitely went right back on it and kind of reverted to his normal self, but that was a nice little glimpse of some depth and made the character seem a little less one note. As far as the acting, I actually enjoyed Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams, their chemistry together on screen. I think they worked really well comedically. He was kind of more like the straight man. She played the Obviously, the oblivious kind of overly optimistic about the situation type of character. And I think it worked well. I think I enjoyed their performances, both of them, throughout the whole movie. So I think the acting was actually really good. Pacing wise, this movie had a runtime of 115 minutes, and I didn't really feel it. It's almost 2 hours, and I didn't really leave it feeling like, man, this is taking a long time. Not necessarily where I'm like they left me thinking that, oh, that's it, that's all we get. But not to where I felt like it overstayed its welcome. I think it was paced actually pretty well. As far as message, there's not much to take away message wise. Message is almost like a bonus category. Like if you have a strong message or like a underlying message that I find to be kind of nice, I add that to the score. But this one is, it's kind of comedy centered. And usually with that, I feel like there's not as much of a political or like kind of undertone message. If none other than just like be careful who you mistreat because you might be at their mercy at some point. So, but it's very much a flipping of the totem pole type of thing. Cinematography wise, I think they actually had a few different nice cinematic sequences. One of the first things that I thought was kind of like quirky and kind of cool was the really like extreme close-ups of when she gets like tuna fish on the boss's hand and he's like repulsed by it and he's holding his hand out. And they do this like micro zoom on the tuna on his hand. And the guy from Allstate, yeah, that you're in good hands. That guy is randomly in it. But they do like a close up on his nose, sniffing it. It was just kind of weird, but it was kind of cool. I like little like creative, not completely necessary shots, but they add a little bit of personality to the visual. That the plane crash was actually pretty cool. They did a lot of it's like a kind of a one shot where Donovan flips back, then they turn the camera, and then the side of the plane comes off, and people get sucked out and all that kind of stuff. So it was some personality once again with the way they chose to show or depict what was happening. Another sequence was the boar. The boar was a cool sequence. The one thing about this movie, like when it got violent, it got really violent or like bloody. It was a lot of blood. And I think that's just kind of Sam Raimi. I'm only familiar with some of his work, like the Spider-Man series, also The Grudge and all that. I forgot that was him, but I've never seen like The Evil Dead or anything like that. I know that's probably like blasphemy, in the cinematic community, but I've never seen those, but I have seen some of his other stuff. And I think that informs some of the ways that he shot some of the stuff, or like just the amount of blood that would come about when there was blood. So it's kind of like the gross out type of way of depicting things, or almost like Quentin Tarantino, when like there's blood, there's just like a gratuitous amount of blood. But I mean, I wasn't made to be overly uncomfortable by it, but if you squeamish about that, it might be a little bit much. Another cool shot was like right before and this is a spoiler alert, so but right before she kills the fiance and the guy that found them, they do this like kind of tilted off kilter type of shot that I kind of liked. It was like it added to the moment, the suspense of the moment. Oh, another thing, honorable mention as far as cinematography, and another or an example of where they had elements of horror was when the fiance came back, or it's like a hallucination. That whole scene actually seemed like it was like an ode to like The Grudge. It was like silhouetted, long hair. She was like wet from the ocean and kind of walking almost like zombie. Like it was like straight, like they borrowed that straight from horror to add in there, and it was just like a little fake out. And I kind of not scoffed, but I'm just like, okay, with fake outs, but it was okay. But it definitely borrowed from like the horror genre in that one moment. Okay, now the ending. Spoiler alert, but we're gonna talk about the ending now. The ending is what I liked the least about this movie. Essentially, we find out that the entire time they've been stranded, and it's throughout the movie where she has Linda Little's character has opportunities to flag down a boat or get their attention and get rescued, but she's so enjoying the new power dynamic she's found on this island with her boss. She's like almost getting like revenge through this power dynamic. She's so enjoying it that she decides like not yet. She even says not yet when she sees the boat the first time. It is a comedy, so I do forgive a lot, but I felt like that was asking me to suspend reality almost to a point where, okay, I got to take away some points because of that. It's like, okay, I might enjoy having more power, but I'm not going to want to stay here on this desert island, or seemingly deserted island, just because I'm lording over my boss now. But then there being like a huge house with like a stocked fridge and fresh fruit, but nobody living there. They just got caretakers dropping off fruit or something, stocking the fridge, and she was able to keep that from him the whole time so that he didn't, I guess, go there and therefore find rescue and get back to the normal life, and she would go back to her kind of lowly existence. I'm like, you could have just stayed here. Like they let him get rescued and say, no, I'll just stay here if you wanted to. But it was like they felt as if they both had to go. He even had a moment where he essentially tries to kill her with like poisonous berries, just so he could get on a raft and try to paddle to safety. Which one was a dumb plan, and two is like, why couldn't you have just left on your own anyway? Like, why did you need to try to kill her, even though he said he didn't try to kill her? But why you need to try to do anything to her, knock her out to get away in the middle of the night? Like you could have just left. So there were some plot holes, kind of convenient coincidences with her just being like a survival enthusiast and then finding herself in a very survival based situation. But once again, it's comedy, so I do, it's kind of a cheat code when it comes to my reviews because I just don't take it as seriously. I forgive a lot of things when it's done for the sake of comedy, because you're gonna have a little bit more cartoonish characters when it's comedy, et cetera, et cetera. So whereas like a Tyler Perry would have a cartoonish character in a serious movie, and therefore like I take a lot more points if you're playing it for seriousness. But if you're playing it for comedy, I can forgive a lot of stuff. Also, each time the boat or a boat would show up in the distance, it was always only where she could see it. Like he was never around to be able to see it and try to wave him down himself. So it was just one of those kind of convenient, okay, I guess so. Or even when the fiance found them, like what happened to that boat? They never showed her like push off, push it back out to sea or something like that. It was just, you never saw it again. So, I don't mean to nitpick, but it was all right. As far as rewatchability, whenever there's a twist toward the end of a movie, it kind of gives earlier scenes a different context. So therefore, you kind of want to go back and watch it, knowing what you know now, type of thing. So I think this has that. But it was an enjoyable movie overall. Like outside of like plot holes and convenient coincidences or whatever, I think it actually was a very enjoyable movie. I enjoyed it probably a little bit more than I expected to. I do have to take away points for the ending. But rewatchability wise, I would watch it again. Like, I probably won't go and see it again in the theater, but I would watch it again. So my review, my score, after all things considered, I thought it was a great story, or not a great story, but a good story. Somewhat predictable, but I felt like it got to a point where I didn't quite know where it was taking us or where it was going to go. And I kind of like that. I don't like being able to completely predict where a story is going. It kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat a little bit more when you can't predict it. It's just, cool cinematography, good acting. Pacing was fine. And just the ending, I didn't really care for. It kind of wrapped up in a way. I wonder if they're going to try to do a sequel, because you don't really see the killing blow at the end. But, I think overall it was a good movie. It was an enjoyable watch. It didn't seem like a super long movie, even though it was almost 2 hours. So my review of Send Help, I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10 reels. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I just didn't care for the ending, but outside of that, it was very enjoyable. It was funny. It got kind of violent and gross at certain times, but I enjoyed it. I think it was a good movie, entertaining watch. In the audience that saw it with was pretty into it, and I don't think that they saw some of the twists and turns coming either. So, but let me know what you guys think. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, that is my review of Sin Help. All right, see ya.